Dan here, and I wanted to show you the results of downloads and how we use a PDF from the USDA Soil Web Survey. This is a 24 by 36 print out from the soil survey that David sent to me, and this is what you get. It's actually fairly well, pretty high resolution, even though it's 24 by 36. In size, we have our scale chart down here, north arrow and such things, latitude and longitude on here, and then this is in Adobe Acrobat. So you open up the PDF in Adobe Acrobat. And one of the first things we want to figure out is what is the actual scale here, because even though you have this scale chart, sometimes it's kind of hard to see, really what's going on. So I'm going to zoom into that using the magnifying glass. And then over here on the right is measure. So if I click on measure and use the measuring tool, I can do that on here. What I'm going to do then is see actually what the scale is. So you do have this scale chart, right, of 120 feet, 80 feet, 40 feet, which is great, but it really doesn't tell you this. Here's map scale is 1 to 472 if printed by a 34 by 22 sheet. But if you go on here and measure what this is, and this is what you get when you use the measuring tool, you can bring it right to the end here, pretty close. Let's see, I'm trying to get the same spot. Right, and this is 3 inches. So if it's 120 feet and 3 inches, it's actually a 40 scale. So 1 inch is 40 feet. So if we went back and measured this over here, we can actually change it. I'm going to grab the line here at the bottom. I thought I was. Let me get this to work here. Here we go. That and that and okay, it's not going to let me do that. So, oh, got another one coming up. So click on this. So anyway, that we know that 40 feet is 1 inch. So we're just going to double check that. So we'll do another measure. By the way, once you click on the measuring tools, you have measuring a line, measuring the perimeter, or give you the volume. And if you do a control click, this is Adobe Acrobat, you can do a control click with the measuring tool on, you get to change percentages here, but also, labels and other things, hide the rulers, turn ortho on, all these different things. But the scale is what we're interested in. So right now we're just measuring 1 inch equals 1 inch because we're just measuring what this is. Later on, if it is 1 to 40 and we want to do other measurements on here, then we would say 1 inch equals 40 feet. Now when we use this tool and we go across here, it's going to say 1 inch is basically 40 feet. There we go. And this seems a little off here, but it's pretty close for our purposes. I'm not quite sure why that's off. But once you set that, you're pretty much right on to measure on the rest of your PDF. So just remember that you use the measuring tool. You have that selected. You're either doing a straight line, a perimeter, right? And down here you can see your scale ratio is already set. We just did that because we went down to the bar chart here and the scale here and used it, and then did a control click and changed the scale ratio from 1 inch to 1 inch to 1 inch equals 40 feet. And that's how you measure on here for other things. So now if you don't know what the borders are and you don't know what the scale, this aerial is, you might have something on the land that you can measure and know for sure. And right now we're just assuming that this is the border line, but we don't really have any measurements, but we can do that by clicking here, clicking there, and this is the perimeter, excuse me. Use the measuring tool. I'm going to measure one line, go over here, go over there, and then you can raise it up and it'll print there what that perimeter is, and then you can go over here. Let's see, we'll go to this one. Go to this one, click up on that line, bring it out a little bit so you can read it. And then in this area here is going to be your measurement. If you want to do the entire perimeter, which is helpful if you're doing fencing, if you're going around a building and looking for square feet, all of that, that's when you can actually use the volume or the perimeter. So a perimeter, if you're doing fencing or something where you have a long line, I have a swale, I have a driveway. How long is this driveway? I'm calculating material or gravel, something like that. If I'm going to, and I can zoom in on this building here, it looks like a flat building. And specifically what I'm trying to do is just find out rather closely what is the square footage of this building. It looks like that's a wall. It's hard to tell if it's it looks flat, but it might be a rounded roof, Quonset hut, something like that. So you can go around like this and just kind of estimate where those edges are. And you click and it will tell you this is 1,547.52 square feet. That's good. Close enough for what we're doing to just get started on our assessment. Now we have a number that can be verified later, but if you can't get to the site, you can use this PDF and just start doing these measurements and start listing these off as you're measuring the buildings to get your square footage, things like that. Dimensions here, and then somewhere in here, if you know an exact dimension, you can measure in between and really get your scale to work correctly. So this is a soil map PDF. Here's some of the soils on here that we have, the names, acres of the land, and then the percentage of the land, which is this soil. So you can see Fox Sandy Loam. Fox Sandy Loam, you have two different slopes here, 0 to 2%, 2 to 6%. So they made that different kind, but that's most of your soil on the land is that. That's this big area right in here, and you see the two different slopes, FMA and FMB, on there. So that's how we do measurements on Adobe Acrobat. Similarly, they do this in Google Earth also. So download in the largest format you can a map off of your soil web survey, and you can use this to start measuring and start doing your base map, knowing these sizes, because we have a grid. We have measurements on there that we can use to start doing property lines, things like that. But also what you can do is print this out. And this will print out at 24 by 36, or actually it's 34 by 22. So about that size. And then you can use that for your base map by tracing over it. So outputting this, taking it to Office Max, $4, you can have a black and white printed of this, and then you can use that for you doing your design work. Great, we'll see you again, and as I have other information, I'll load that up too. This is Dan Halsey, and this is APS 5101, Ecological Design for Horticulture.